Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for choosing Across the Fence for this special half-hour edition. I'm Will Michael, in this afternoon for Judy Simpson. At its heart, the UVM Extension 4-H program is about learning and responsibility. The lessons sometimes come from caring for an animal or perhaps a community service project. The 4-Hers we feature here on Across the Fence are passionate about learning, and when it comes time to act, they're always among the first to step up. Vermont's Youth Environmental Summit is an annual 4-H event that attracts these self-starters. These are middle and high school students. Most of them are not 4-H members, but like their peers in 4-H clubs, these students are passionate, they care, and they want to be the ones who take responsibility and make a difference. So Across the Fence's Keith Silva was at the Youth Environmental Summit earlier this month, and he filed this report.
The 4-H Youth Environmental Summit provides 7th through 12th graders the chance to speak out, take action, and make a difference in their schools, communities, and personal lives.
I think we should care about doing stuff for the environment because in the long run it will help us all. If you can just do something small, it really makes a big impact.
I think it's good for young people to care for the environment since we're like the next generation and they should be aware.
Over 220 students from 22 schools in Vermont and New Hampshire are taking part in this event. There are workshops ranging in topics from climate policy and pollinators to recycling and composting.
I think we can all agree that contributes to climate change, but even beyond that,
A scavenger hunt is a big hit with the students. They have to find answers from over 25 exhibitors on hand. The activity allows them to interact one-on-one with professionals in environmental science and public policy. Lauren Traister is UVM Extension's 4-H Teen and Leadership Specialist. She organized this event.
We know our young people are really concerned about our future, the future of the planet. They're aware of that there are real problems that need real solutions. And so they're talking about this stuff at school, they're talking about this with their families, they're talking about it with each other, and we just want to have the opportunity to bring all of our young people who this matters to together in one place with members of our environmental professional community to share ideas, to talk with each other, to connect with each other. So hopefully when they leave today, they're more informed and they have ideas of things that they can actively do to make a difference.
These students aren't going to be students forever. That's a concept Traister hopes resonates now and especially in a few years.
These are our future voters, and they need to be informed. They need to know that you need to affect policy to affect change. You need to affect behavior to affect change. Sometimes it is things like policy, which may not sound as exciting to a 7th, 8th, 9th grader, but these are the things that they're gonna have to do in order to make a difference. The earlier we connect our young people to the real world topics, issues, problems, solutions, the more likely that they are to engage also when they're adults. And especially, again, I go back to when they're of voting age, and that's going to make a real difference if we have an environmentally literate citizen population.
Josh Lambert is the science teacher at Burke Town School. It's the first time he and his students are attending the 4-H Youth Environmental Summit. They're catching on to what this event is all about.
By bringing these students here, I really hope that they will be more mindful and will be more active as active future citizens and voters and sharing what they've learned here and applying it.
Lambert sees raising student awareness about the environment as a lesson in developing personal responsibility.
We can tell them everything and as much as we want, and it's not until the students take ownership of it that they're really going to do it themselves. In the process of coming to these workshops and becoming more mindful of what we can do and starting projects, that they will open up those lanes of communication with business partners and other active members of the community.
Zach Akasawa and Hannah Angel are 8th graders at Burke Town School. The summit has inspired them to make changes at school and in their community.
Well, we were thinking doing fundraisers to raise money to get things or to help get more like things that are better for the environment for our school instead of like milk carton, for example, for our milk, like to get a bulk milk machine or like something better.
I think it's going to help me be more educated in the choices I make and how to go about making decisions.
Why is that important?
It's really important because we're going to be like the next generation to kind of make choices and improve the world. So I think being more educated now about it will help me later.
Working on the scavenger hunt gave Giovanni Falco the opportunity to network with environmental professionals and his fellow students.
I was learning about different organizations in Vermont and New Hampshire that are fighting back against greenhouse gases and CO2 emissions going in the atmosphere. And I also learned about different schools and kids and what they're doing as a smaller part of their community that is making a big effect on cutting back on greenhouse gases and CO2 emissions in the air.
Gaining experience from these interactions is why Falco's teacher, Jody Sabatasso, brings students here year after year.
I think it's a great chance for the students from Alton High School to see what's going on around the state and what other schools are doing and what programs are out there for them to help sustain the environment. I've had students in the past come up here that are now at UVM, are engineering degrees, because they were talking to the Rubenstein School and made that connection and really wanted to go to UVM because of those connections.
For Sabatasso, the 4-H Youth Environmental Summit provides students with new ways to think about what they may want to do with their futures.
It's really bringing Vermont together and a group of kids that are, need to start making informed decisions about what they're going to do later in life. And UVM Extension does a really nice job with all their programs with the use of 4-H and helping kids just develop that plan, what they need later in life, whether it be in the environment, whether it be in economics, business, tourism, so on and so forth. I think it gets kids together to talk and think about their futures.
For Leah Zamerko, the future is about awareness, engagement, and action.
I feel like it's important to be involved in what's going on so that when you can vote and when you can make those decisions, you have information and background knowledge that can back you up, and you know what's going on, and you know how to help change. And also, like, people like seeing people younger trying to get involved and like showing that they do know what's happening, and when they can vote, it's more impactful.
The 4-H Youth Environmental Summit provides a peek into possibilities, solutions, and goals. All things these future leaders will need going forward. In Barrie, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, thank you, Keith. Joining me now is the statewide 4-H program director, Sarah Kleinman. Sarah, it's always a pleasure to have you with us. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We just saw in the video the Youth Environmental Summit spotlighting teen leadership. Is this necessarily a new area for 4-H, teen leadership?
No, it really isn't. We've been focusing on teen leadership for over a decade, but 4-H in general, we are over 100 years old, and leadership has always been a huge component of what we do. As we try to continue to attract older youth, we have put in place many more opportunities for teens so that they hope to stay engaged and really become leaders and build that leadership skill.
When you talk from a programmatic point of view about teens, you're talking 13 to 18, 13 to 17, roughly?
Roughly. Some of our programs are open for 11 and 12-year-olds as well. We find that the junior high, middle school aged youth, oftentimes they're more interested and willing to participate than even some of the older youth and have a little bit more time. So depending upon which program we're talking about, the age group may be a tad bit different.
Can you give us some viewers some other examples of the type of 4-H program that focuses specifically on leadership for teens?
Sure. Similar to the Youth Environmental Summit, we have an opportunity called TRY, Teens Reaching Youth for the Environment. That is for middle school and high school aged youth to learn how to become a teacher, essentially. They step into a leadership position and get trained on one of 5 different environmental curricula, and then they use that training to teach younger aged youth, kindergarten, first, second, third graders, in a 6 to 8 week program.
I'm smiling because I've seen this program in action, and it's really cool to see that idea. And we say this about older adults. You've mastered something when you can teach it, and it's really neat to see these teens being able to teach third grade students. Fascinating.
It is. And those third grade students relate much better to a peer, even if they're a high school aged individual, than an actual teacher in the classroom. So not only do those teens gain the content mastery, the knowledge that they gain, whether it's on composting or trees or water, but they also learn about classroom behavior and management and how to convey a lesson and share in different learning styles. So that's a wonderful program, and that's grown tremendously over the past couple years. We also have a lot of standalone programs, camps, what we call LEAD, L-E-A-D, that run in different parts of the state. They may be a single day activity, they might be an overnight for teens to come and also just learn leadership skills. We have a program coming up specifically for our 4-H club members, Teen Leadership Weekends, I think in 2 weeks, where a group of 20, 30, 40 kids will get together and spend the weekend learning communication skills, learning leadership skills, practicing those, and really getting to step into leadership positions as they lead some of those activities themselves. So leadership, especially teen leadership, has been a part of what we do, but it's, I guess we have built that emphasis over the past decade. We also know, too, that businesses, one of the things that in the new workforce that comes into being, many people are coming without that, they don't have the communication skills or initiative, and so 4-H has really stepped in to try to build that, to make sure that our future workforce provides the leaders that we need to move our economy and world forward.
Statewide, how many kids are we talking about that are served by the Extension 4-H program?
We count about 6,000 youth served through all of our different programs. We count about 1,200 youth in just the club program, which is probably the most impactful of all of our programs because it's a year-long opportunity that meets more often than some of our shorter-term programs.
So getting at, there's really nothing in the state that reaches more kids than 4-H.
I believe that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about some of the age demographics and how that kind of breaks down around the state? Are a lot of younger kids, the kids fall off a little bit as they get older? Trying to get a sense of statewide.
Sure. The 4-H program overall services youth in kindergarten up to 18 years of age. Not surprisingly, our 4-H club program in particular reaches the majority of youth in the elementary school arena, kindergarten through 5th or 6th grade. And then the club program numbers do tend to drop off as we get into middle school and then again into high school, which is also another reason why we've built the emphasis around teen leadership and some of the opportunities reaching the older, because we do have data and research that shows the longer you stay in 4-H and the more you engage in these type of opportunities, the more impactful and the better the benefits will be.
There's something that you and I have talked about before, which is how is 4-H different today than our grandparents or parents' generation?
Right. It's different and it's not at the same time. There's still a focus on having a volunteer mentor. There's still a focus on building that sense of belonging and learning by doing. But the content areas have certainly changed. With the club program, we've tried to build in more technology, more civic engagement opportunities, and more healthy living, which might be a little bit different than it was, 50 years ago. However, because people are busier now than they have been, we have more shorter-term opportunities, something called spin clubs, which are similar to a 4-H club, but for a confined period of time. It's harder to get volunteers now to lead a 4-H club year-round, forever and ever, and so it's easier to find people to participate if they know it's only 6 or 8 weeks or it's for a certain part of the year.
And I'm jumping in to remind our viewers that we've talked about this on the program. Spin is a special interest, culinary might be a great example of, and we've had that example, technology, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If people have a business or a passion that they might open up their doors and share that for 6 or 8 weeks, once a week for a couple hours, that's an easy way and an excellent way to bring in youth to build that sense of belonging to a community and also learn a valuable skill, both life skill and content area.
Sarah, what does 4-H need to continue to be successful in the future?
That's a very good question. I would say first and foremost, we need people. We need volunteers. Our program, while we do have staff that support the 4-H program across the state, we cannot do what we do without volunteers. And so as people, again, become busier, are more engaged in the workforce, we need more people willing to step up and support our programs by offering a skill, leading a project, volunteering for a specific day. Absolutely. So we need adults who are willing to give back some of their time to
That's a
support our
hallmark
programs.
of the program. Generally speaking, at any given time, you currently have some 400 to 500 volunteers statewide at any given time.
We do. Definitely over 500. Not everybody works directly with youth.
Yep.
We have volunteers that are serving on 4-H foundations to help financially support our program. We have some volunteers that will come into fairs and field days or just one day a year to evaluate exhibits. But it's the 4-H clubs, it's that mentoring opportunity that is really, again, most impactful and supports the children the best.
Sarah, we have some other video that we're going to get to as part of our special half hour, but we have about a minute left with you. It's a time of year that people are giving thanks. What does the statewide 4-H director have to be thankful for this time of year?
I am incredibly thankful for the staff and volunteers. Again, without them, we can't do what we do. We can't reach the 6,000 youth. We can't build those life skills that are so important. And so our volunteers and staff really are passionate about building those skills and giving something to our kids to make sure that we have the best state possible now and going into the future. So,
well, let's me state publicly, so are you.
Yeah.
You've been in this job now for over 15 years, and I know you bring that to your work every day.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
I do really want to thank you for being with us. And as you've mentioned over the course of the past 10 minutes or so, 4-H's learning by doing approach helps young people develop the knowledge and skills they need to become competent, caring, and contributing citizens. Across the Fence recently met more than 50 young Vermonters who were learning by doing in the 4-H Tech Wizards program. So Keith Silva has the first of our stories on that.
On the water.
Does everybody know about how long Lake Champlain might be?
And in the lab.
So that you're able to sort of like open the side of the fish.
Students from Linden Town School are getting up close and hands-on with Lake Champlain.
We learned how many different types of organisms are in Lake Champlain and how they work together in the food web.
I've been out on a boat before, but nothing really like this. I go out on like Crystal and Willoughby and stuff like that, but I've never been out on Lake Champlain.
This visit aboard University of Vermont's research vessel, the Melisira, and to UVM's Rubenstein Ecosystem Science Laboratory are part of the 4-H Tech Wizards program at Linden Town School. Lindsay Carpenter is the UVM Extension 4-H Tech Wizards Coordinator in St. Johnsbury.
So 4-H Tech Wizards is a federal grant that the university received about 7 years ago. It's supported by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. So it's actually a mentoring program for youth with a focus on giving those youth opportunities for hands-on learning with STEM education.
Rub it in your fingers.
Besides getting their hands dirty, Carpenter wants to provide students with an experience that lasts.
We're hoping that they're seeing some new things that they've never saw before, or they're seeing it in a different way that might entice their learning and their questions about this form of science. Maybe as they pursue their post-secondary plans, they think, well, hey, I did this really cool activity in 7th grade with UVM. I think I want to go explore that opportunity.
So can you all see something swimming around in there? You can? Yeah.
Amelia Tarrant of Lake Champlain Sea Grant puts the students to work as scientists.
We want students to be able to be exposed to lots of different aspects of the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So we look at not only how can we crunch the numbers, but how can we build the instruments that take those measurements that give us the numbers to crunch. Through the lens of experiential learning and science, we then are able to expose them to some of these science topics and give them ideas for their careers as they move on to high school and college.
Paul Choquette teaches 7th grade English at Linden Town School. As a part of the lessons he assigns, Choquette challenges students to think outside the classroom and their school.
We've done a lot of career exploration stuff through our PLPs, our personal learning plans. They don't have to leave the state in order to get some of these experiences that they're looking for, whether it's the research, whether it's even the mechanical engineer on the boat as far as the equipment goes. It shows them that it's available here in Vermont and that it's available through UVM or any of the other affiliate colleges. Because we live an hour and a half from Burlington, the kids don't typically get out here to see what's available. Just giving them an opportunity to explore what Vermont has available to us, as well as the really cool features of Vermont, whether it's through the Yakko Lake Aquarium or the lab or just some culture stuff.
Remember Hannah? She said she'd never been on Lake Champlain. And after this experience, she thinks she could get used to having class outside.
I feel like I like being outside in a learning environment. than in a classroom. I feel like it's easier to focus. Well, it makes it more interesting to look at. Like in a classroom, you don't really see as much stuff.
For Max McClure, being outside means being hands-on.
It's better to do hands-on because then you have the experience with it and you have more knowledge about it. And I actually get to see it instead of using pictures and images and stuff like that. So it's better to see and actually hands-on activities.
The wind kept stripping heat out of the lake.
Having this experience gives McClure a glimpse at what he'd like to do in the future.
I want to do something with biology when I'm older, so it's really cool to learn about this and have the experience.
For McClure, Jewel, and their classmates, this experience is turning out to be a great teacher.
Well, we've been out here on Lake Champlain. Another group of Linden students has been in the lab. Let's join Becky Gollin and find out what they're looking at.
Here in the lab, students are getting a first-hand look at fish anatomy, from the outside in.
If you see that little hole in the bottom of the fish, that's called the vent.
You have to cut through the fish a certain way in order to get it out and separated. So you have to cut from the bottom of the fish and go up to about its mouth and then make a T from that, and you can pull it out separately.
Adelia Griffith is describing the technique for removing the fish's stomach. She and her classmates are examining the contents, looking for tiny pieces of plastic.
They were able to dissect smelt as a part of an ongoing citizen science project we have that is trying to figure out if there are microplastics turning up in the stomachs of some of the smaller fish, if they're mistaking them for plankton, and kind of how they're affecting the food chain in that way.
Learning about how the microscopic pieces wind up in the lake was eye-opening for these students.
I haven't heard about these things until today, and I just learned that fleece has those microscopic plastics, and when you wash your fleece, it gets all washed out. That's how it ends up in the fish.
Seeing the microplastics in the fish tells all of us that if you have the microbeads that are in your soap and you wash that down the drain, it does become a part of Lake Champlain and other bodies of water, and that gets into the fish body.
It definitely has a very small brain. I mean, if you look at it in relation to the other organs, it's pretty tiny.
From the lab,
If you look at a lot of these little...
to the lake, the goal of the day is for students to gain a new appreciation for science after experiencing it outside of the classroom.
They're just learning about our local waterway and different species that live in there and what they can do as young learners to either get their hands dirty and involved and maybe extend their learning in this realm of science, or maybe it's a branch onto something else. So just to sort of expand their learning, get them out of the Northeast Kingdom, bring them to this city that we have in Vermont.
There's kind of two things that are happening during our programs. One is the environmental literacy, so learning about some of the different watershed topics, concerns, emergent pollutants, but then also learning about what are the potential careers in STEM that these students could pursue, and thinking outside the traditional white lab coat and looking at, okay, what does a field researcher really do? What is it really like to work in a lab? And what is it like to just be interested in the natural environment and ask questions and try and figure out the answers?
For teachers at Linden Town School, the trip fits in with their emphasis on science.
We have a huge push in our school for the science curriculum, and also we really want to get our kids out in the community and just know what Vermont has to offer. And kids don't get from our side of the state too often to Burlington, and the opportunity to not only get out on the research vessel and do the work, the dissections in the lab and the echo was really a fantastic opportunity.
So a watershed is basically what I like to think of as like a nested system. So it's the way the water moves from the highest points to the lowest points.
If you get them in 7th grade and say, hey, yeah, you can totally come to the university lab and dissect a fish, or go on the university's research vessel and learn about that equipment when you're 12. And then, hey, the even cooler thing, you can come back here when you're 18 and attend the University of Vermont. It's possible for all students, even our rural Northeast Kingdom students.
As these middle schoolers begin to think about their futures, this chance to learn about lake ecology from the scientists studying it is a new kind of opportunity. And it's one that's sure to leave a lasting impression, as will the stories about how things, both small and large, can end up in the lake. Did it change the way that you look at the lake?
Yes, a lot actually. It changed, well, they were talking about how one day she said that when they were trying to catch some fish, they caught something heavy and they tried to pull it up and they found a snowmobile in the lake. And that changed my perspective on how stuff ends up in the water.
Water is a part of everything that we do, whether you're drinking it, whether you're using it to recreate, whether it's just, being pumped out of your house to wastewater treatment facilities. It's a part of our world every day. And so I think just to kind of having the literacy to be able to understand those connections will help them just become better citizens, I think, in the state of Vermont.
Teaching students to be better citizens by giving them the tools to be scientists and taking them on a field trip to remember. In Burlington, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
For more information about opportunities in 4-H, you can call the State 4-H office toll-free at 1-800-571-0668, or you're also invited to check the website, uvm.edu/extension/youth. That is our program for today. Thank you for choosing Across the Fence. I'm Will Michael, inviting you to join us back here each weekday afternoon for another visit Across the Fence.